home. We are WNST. Tassa, Baltimore. Baltimore Positive. We are positively in the mecca of crab cakes. It's the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. It's all presented. I got to say this, Congressman Sarbanes. I finally got the Maryland scratch-offs from the Maryland Lottery. So they're here now. They're here for the rest of the fall. I'll be giving them away. Folks are lining up down here at Fadley's. It is all brought to you by the Maryland Lottery. In conjunction with our friends at Jiffy Lube Multi-Care, we are getting out on the road. Luke's doing Ravens and Orioles. I was going to tell Luke to come down here today. He had a press conference with John Harbaugh. Orioles are in town. We're worried about the postseason. We're worried about the Yankees next week and the Cowboys and the Bills and all that. But I got business to do. The good congressman is outgoing. This is your favorite place, so this is your exit interview with me, Congressman Sarbanes, from the 3rd. You're not my district, but I tried to explain to someone what the 3rd district was, and I said it's sort of the Route 100 district, right? Like I was on Route 100 last night going to Columbia, up in that area, and above there it's really Severna Park to sort of Mount Airy, and it's sort of yours looks the least gerrymandered of all of them, I think.
Which is funny because mine used to be the most gerrymandered looking. You may remember we've been through 2 redistricting since I've been in office. I got in there in 2007. We had a redistricting in 2010, then we had another one in 2020. So the shape of your district changes. The last time, just recently, it changed pretty dramatically. I used to be spread across 5 different jurisdictions. Now I'm in 3, and mostly it's Anne Arundel County, parts of it, and then all of Howard County. I never had a whole county inside my district before.
Well, I'm having an oyster everywhere. I had an oyster in Howard County in your district, at Columbia Mall, at the Walrus, Oyster Shooter. We're here at Fadley's. I'm in the middle of this crazy oyster tour, but this is your favorite crab cake. This is your place.
It's everybody's favorite crab cake from what I can figure, and it should be.
This
is a landmark, and it's a beautiful thing to see how they have continued to anchor this place, this culture here in Baltimore. It's a point of pride. Fadley's always has been, will continue to be. You can't beat the
Nancy's
food.
staring at us. You know, the night
there she is.
I saw you. Last time I saw you was the grand opening here. It was a nighttime. They kind of shut the whole market down. Probably 800 people here, all sorts of people here, electeds and friends and celebrities and BJ Sorrell. And Davey sent me to her mom, and her mom was the celebrity. Dad was here that night. And I said to Nancy, I said, I'm good. This is going to be my new set over here in the corner.
That's awesome.
And she said, that's great because I'm staring at you.
She's watching every move.
She said to me, she walked me over here and she said, I want you to know when you're doing your show, see that picture? That's not the real picture is me wagging my finger at you. So she's here on Saturdays.
If you drop a napkin on the floor, she's coming right out of that picture after you, so you better watch out.
I'm Baltimore Positive, right? And I've seen you in the old location, and you've gone on about when your brother lands here, the first place he comes with the suitcases is Fadley's to get crab cakes.
Yeah.
And the redevelopment of the market, and the fact that it's kind of now put together. You came in, I was like, hey, go to the bathroom, Congressman. You're like, I don't know. I'm like, nah, take a walk. And I made you walk through here. And you're like, where's the bathroom? And I'm like, downstairs around the corner. And you came back up here, and the first thing you said is, wow, look at this place. I mean, this must be the first time it's only been open a couple months, really, but
it's hopping.
When we say Baltimore Positive, about things that are getting better about our city. I'm in this city 3-4 days a week. I was at the Oyster Festival in Fells Point, walking around the harbor, all of these. And there's questions, and the harbor plays this, and we have issues, but there are things getting better, not just the baseball team here.
And there's things that represent an expression of confidence in the present of the city, but also in the future of the city. I mean, you don't make the kind of commitments that were made here in terms of the whole market, and you certainly don't make the kind of commitments that Fadley's made unless you believe in the future of the city. And every time somebody stands up and makes that kind of down payment or investment in the future, it's good for the whole city, and it keeps us moving forward. So, on any given day, there's going to be challenges. That's what cities are.
Sure.
That's what makes them interesting. But if you net out with forward progress, and I think the city is doing that, then it's a good feeling.
John Sarbanes is our guest. He's the good congressman from the 3rd. He will become citizen. Although when Mueller says you're always a congressman, I always say everybody's a mayor, everybody's whatever their title was, they keep for life. First off, how you feeling? How's your health? How's life?
Yeah.
Give my audience or people that care about you that haven't caught up with you, because I haven't caught up with you in a while, and on that night I saw you here, we shared an oyster or whatever, but I don't know that we like caught up.
Yeah.
How are you? It's been about a year and a half since you've been on the show.
No, I'm doing well. I'm feeling good. I'm trying to stay in shape. I swim at the YMCA 3 times a week.
John Hoey will like to hear that.
Yeah,
the Y of Maryland.
Yes, indeed. And that's another great organization. They do really good work throughout the region and including in Baltimore City.
And you're not just a spokesperson, you're a customer, you're a user.
Yeah, I know what it's all about. I'm in there working out. So, I feel like I'm in decent health. You got to knock on wood every time you say that. I feel like I'm in a good frame of mind in terms of this is the right moment and time for me to transition to some new things. When I got into this business of politics, well, I've been in it my whole life because my family was in it. But when I got in as an elected official 18 years ago, I didn't think it would be the last thing I did. I mean, I thought, there'll be something else on the other side. And if you're thinking that way, you get to a certain point, you're looking at the clock on the wall, and you're like, well, if I'm going to do some other things, I better get started on it. So
I did that in my 50s too.
Yeah.
I'm 56 and I've changed and I'm seeing so many people, not just people like Dutch and Johnny O, people on that want these gigs that you have, but people that say, well, that's a politician for life and he'll be there for life. Maybe serves people for life like Ben Cardin did or whatever. But like for you to make a decision on it, sometimes that decision gets made for you by the electorate, right? In different ways.
Well, you know what you're saying is absolutely true. It's relatively unusual. Because, I've been looking back at the record now as a member of Congress leaving. You're kind of interested. How did other people leave? And it's kind of unusual to say, I've been here for a while. I feel good about it. I don't know yet exactly the next thing, but I'm ready to make the move now. I'm going to finish out my term, kind of run through the tape, which has always been my style. I'm 62.
What's your last day? January? What is
January 4th is the last day.
That's your day? Okay.
And like you say, next day I'm a civilian. I want to keep my hand in service. I want to keep working on some of these things that I've taken a deep dive on, civics and democracy work, health, mental health, physical health. I've done a lot of work in that area. And environmental, making sure we're doing the right thing for the Chesapeake Bay and for our planet and all the rest of it. So, maybe the headline is I'm leaving Congress, but I'm not walking away from this work I care about, figuring out exactly kind of what's the structure, what's the way that I push that forward into a new space. That's kind of what I'm thinking through now, and then I'll be able to do some other things as well. So I'm excited about it. It's a new chapter.
So, we're almost the same age. You're a little bit older than me, and last time you were here, and I'll encourage folks, you regaled me with Watergate tales of your childhood and your dad coming home from Watergate, and this is before. I think Trump might have been president the last time we told that story, and we were talking about that's before the insurrection, before all of that. And I know I've had you on via Zoom after we were wearing masks and whatnot. Did you ever think of doing anything else? Did you dream of being president of the United States? Because you went as high as you were going to go. Your dad had that thing going on. But there's a thought that, all I've ever wanted to do literally was sports in Baltimore. Yeah. And when I get into my 50s, I start to think, all right, what else am I going to do? And I never really thought about doing anything else. And I would think in the middle of what you've been doing, the amount of focus it's taken to be what you are and what you're running for and being a public figure from the time you were a kid, really, did you ever think of doing anything else? Was there ever another path for you other than the one that was laid by your family that, I don't say you honored it, but you followed it?
Well,
and it was
for starters, keep in mind, before I got into elected office, the first 18 years of my career was private sector as a lawyer, working with nonprofits, working for 6 years with Nancy Grasmick over at the State Department of Education, doing education work. So I had a career before I got to Congress.
Did you never want to run, or was it always in your mind that I'm going to do it?
So that's a good question. So, if you're in a political family, it's kind of out there as a possibility. Sometimes the next generation in a political family is allergic to that. They're like, I don't want to do that. I never had that. But at the same time, I didn't just take for granted or assume that I would choose that path. And so I did these other things, and I did them based on my interests, stuff that I worked on my whole life. You know, I'm interested in healthcare. That's what I did as a lawyer. I was interested in community and pro bono work, and so I worked with nonprofits because I feel like if you're going to go into politics, if you want to have a political voice, it can't come out of thin air. It has to be anchored in something you believe in, service that you've done, which is why I always ask, particularly young people, you know, if they're out there on the street protesting, more power to them. But show me how your protest is connected to some service that you've done. You understand what I'm saying? There has to be a connection there. So I didn't assume I would go into politics, but I also didn't, rule it out. And so when the
But it wasn't the North Star.
Right, exactly.
Okay, all right.
And so when the opportunity presented itself back in 2006, because Ben Cardin decided to run for my father's seat because my father was retiring. So his seat opened up, Cardin's, and I thought, well, if I'm ever going to do something like this, I ought to give it a good look right now. And
what made you? What drew you to it, knowing the shortcomings and the longcomings, and I guess 2 decades later to say, I think you feel like it was a good decision as when
Absolutely.
you went.
No regrets.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
No regrets. What pulled me towards it? It was a way to kind of make an impact at another level, and also pull together. Like I said, I was in the public sector working with the State Department of Education. I was in the nonprofit sector. I was heading up the Public Justice Center as the president of the board for a number of years, and then I was in the private sector working with healthcare institutions and so forth. So I'm in all these different parts of sort of community life, and I thought, well, being a member of Congress is a chance to kind of pull all that together into one day job. And it turned out that way, for sure. But going in, I wasn't thinking I'm going to stay till they carry me out. I was saying, let me see if I can make a contribution. I feel like I've done good work in a number of areas. I feel very satisfied with it. But it's time to do something else. And frankly, it's good to get new blood in to these places.
I think every citizen would agree with that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Why should you stay there for life? And we got good people coming behind us. I'm very happy about the woman who's going to succeed me in the 3rd District, Sarah Elfrich. She's a state senator out of Annapolis. Maryland has no women right now in our congressional delegation.
Well, that's about to change.
The 2 senators are men and all 8 members of the House. And that is going to change because I think we're going to get Senator also Brooks in the United States Senate. I think we're definitely going to get Congresswoman Elfrith and Congresswoman Delaney out in Western Maryland. So that's the right direction for things to go in. And I don't need to stick around and hang on to this seat longer than I need to. I can go do some other stuff.
What's the best part of the job? Sarah's sitting here right now. What's your...
The best
Make
part,
me Sarah and say, all right, I'm doing this job. What am I going to love? What am I going to hate? What's my challenges? And what do you feel like you have in the red zone in a general sense from your work that could be followed through in?
Yes. So the best part of the job is the fact that on any given day, you've got the top people in whatever the field is coming into your office talking to you. You're getting testimony from experts on all of these things that are confronting our country. So you get this very diverse, full-bodied picture of what is happening out there in the community, what's happening in cities like Baltimore, what's happening in our country. So if you have a lot of different interests, which I do, you're like a pig in mud, right?
Right, it feeds your mind.
Yeah, so that's the best part of the job. It really is. Another important part of it is just this opportunity to serve people through constituent work. So, we go to Washington, we work on the big legislative initiatives, we try to do the right thing for the country. But the meat and potatoes of this is constituent service. And you can really change somebody's life if you pay attention. And I'm very proud that my team and I, because really it was my team that did it, we've always been timely in responding to constituent inquiries, mail, doing casework. I mean, if you get veterans benefits for somebody who didn't realize what they were entitled to, you can change their life overnight. And we've been able to do that over and over and over
That's
again.
a great example.
You
But
know?
what else do people? What would I call my congressman about? Maybe, I guess I should ask Johnny because he'll be coming in where I am. But
Social Security, Medicare,
anything that's
veterans,
federal,
anything
that's federal.
involving a federal agency, it's our responsibility to help you navigate that. And I think we've done a good job. And you know
That's
what's the
Schoolhouse
most
Rock, John, because
Yeah.
a lot of people don't really. I'm 55 years old, and other than sitting talking to y'all,
Yeah.
I don't feel like I needed to drop a dime that I needed something from you, and I don't know what
right.
what point do you call the county? Do you call the state? Do you call your congressman? I mean, I've had Senator Carr and Senator Van Hollen. I sit next to them, and I'm like, I don't have anything personally for you to do.
But if you did.
But if I did, I wonder what those needs are
Yeah.
and how I would even know. To your point, some people don't even know what their what the law is or what their entitlements
Now,
are.
what's good is we collaborate with state officials, local officials. So something like a Social Security question might come into a county executive, and they're like, well, that's federal, but we'll put you in touch with Sarbanes' office because we work with him every day. Vice versa. Something might come into me, there's a pothole out there that needs to be fixed.
Me, right.
I can say, well, that's not federal, but let me get you the right person locally who can help you. So we tag team to make sure that we are serving the public. And the most rewarding thing for me has been when people come up to me as I'm moving around and they say, I called your office, I had a problem. And in this case, they say you weren't able to solve it in the end. It just wasn't possible. But I'm so appreciative because your staff got back to me on a weekly basis. They let me know what was going on. They were definitely listening to me and working for me. And what you realize is people just want to be seen and heard and respected. So even when you can't get the solution for them, the fact that you're treating them with the respect, that's a service in and of itself. And that's just about who you are and how you project yourself as a public servant. That's the number one thing. So those are the parts of the job that are really rewarding. The thing I'm hoping that Congress will do after I'm gone from Congress is finally get, at some point, this democracy legislation across the finish line. The Freedom to Vote Act, which I'm privileged to be the author of, what's it do? It makes sure people can get to the ballot box every 2 years without having to run an obstacle course because it raises the standards.
Or take a day off of work or
whatever.
That.
It's designed to make it easy in America to register and cast your vote. Number two, it fixes partisan gerrymandering across the country. People can't stand that. The idea that politicians...
How does it fix it?
It fixes it by setting up these independent criteria that determine whether a district has been drawn fairly or not. Because right now in a lot of places...
Based on what? Economics? Based on...
No, it's based on...
That criteria.
No, it's based on formulas relative to turnout, relative to registration, other kinds of things. So you can tell looking at a state based on historical patterns whether the districts actually reflect the popular vote or whether they've been sliced and diced in a way to give one party an advantage over the other. And this happens all across the country. And
based on who's in charge
based on who's in charge in a
right.
particular state. So this would come up uniform standards that would apply to congressional districts everywhere. And I think the result is you'd get a fair representation actually in the House of Representatives of what the popular vote looks like out in the country. And then the last thing we do, and this is to me in some ways the most important, is fight the corruption. People are so sick of money having all this insider influence in Washington, anywhere. They want to push back. They don't feel respected by that. And so we have provisions in there that would require disclosure of all this dark money that's out there. People know it's out there, but they can't see where it's coming from. So we would require transparency. And we would set up a whole new opportunity to fund campaigns through small donor matching systems. You give $25, there's a matching fund that comes in behind that.
Didn't we have the city do that this year? I mean, we did.
A lot of jurisdictions locally and states are stepping into this because it's a power move on the part of the people and the public saying, wait a second, instead of lobbyists and big donors bankrolling campaigns.
Buying elections, essentially.
And then you answer to them when you get in there.
Right.
How about we step up behind this, and then you can keep answering to us, which makes perfect sense. It's kind of like if you're at dinner and you're the politician, And on the left, you've got a lobbyist sitting with you. And on the right, you've got, like, the public there. And the check comes. The lobbyist reaches over and says, I'll take that. And the public says, no, we got this. Because we want this guy to answer to us.
Well,
not
that's the
to
way
you.
it was set up in 1776, right? I mean,
Answer
you're the
to
historian
people.
on this.
Be dependent on the people alone.
But this really has changed in the modern era where a Saudi Arabian prince could fall in love with a congressional district in some key state and just come in and say...
Yeah, foreign money can flow if we don't stop it. But big corporate money... I mean, look, why do you think the pharmaceutical industry has so much influence in Washington? Or big tech, or the oil and gas industry, or the gun lobby?
They've purchased
because the money comes pouring in. And we got to break that dependency and get the voice of everyday Americans back on the field of their own. They're up in the bleachers, and they're looking down there, and they're seeing all these power players running the plays. And they're like, where do we belong? They want to step onto the field and be power players. Everyday person. That's the way it ought to be. So that legislation, freedom to vote, that I've been working on 10 years, if we could finally get that over the finish line. Now, to do it, we need what we call the trifecta, because the Republicans aren't interested in doing this legislation. So we need a Democrat in the White House. We need a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate, and then we'll get it done. But it'll be good for everybody, not just Democrats. It'll be good for everybody.
You would think at some point the damage that Trump has done would begin to affect elections and that part of the balance, maybe the gerrymandering alone in other states that are completely red no matter what he says or does. Where were you on January 6th, Congressman? You were there. Were you there?
I was in my office. I was not in the Capitol, thank God, like some of my colleagues were.
Like some of the people I talked to.
Yeah. I was in my office. We were getting instructions, stay away from the windows, stay behind your desk, because they didn't know what might come lobbing through these windows and so forth. It was a very scary moment and very kind of surreal and disorienting, like the idea that the Capitol could be breached.
I think 3.5 years later, there's a large sector of the population that has really some level of I'm still in disbelief that it happened, and I'm in disbelief he's not under a prison because of it, and could deflect in some way to say it wasn't my party.
Yeah.
Like, I see the ads being run now. I think as a citizen, if my parents came back to life, your father, they would be aghast at what's happened here.
Well,
they would be stunned.
Let me tell you something. My father died on December 7th of 2020. My father always had good timing. So he lived long enough to see Joe Biden, his friend, get elected in that November. But he passed away before the insurrection
in between the
on
election,
January
right,
6th.
okay.
So he didn't have to see that, because that would have crushed him. To see this place where he spent 36 years of his life working that Capitol building overrun on that day, I don't know how he would have processed it.
By people who wanted to overthrow our government. Like, literally,
Absolutely.
That's what happened.
Yeah, they did not want to accept the results of an election. And this is what's changed, by the way. Now it's part of the standard playbook, not just to run a hard campaign and try to win on Election Day, but after Election Day to contest the results. This is in the playbook now. And that's a new and dangerous thing, because that undermines this whole thing that we've been so proud of as Americans, which is the peaceful transfer of power, right? You run a good campaign, you do the best you can, but if you lose, you step back and say, all right, the other guy won, the other woman won, and maybe I'll take a shot next time, but you don't contest it.
Disinformation campaigns were always contested in courts in this country and decided by, but at the end of the day, we find out what's real information and what's not. Yeah. The waters are incredibly muddy.
Very hard.
And it becomes even more muddy when the day after the election, everybody screams, unfair fight.
Yeah, exactly right. And to your point, the disinformation that's out there makes it so hard for people to figure out what the heck is going on. And the other thing is people are picking and choosing where they're getting their news from. So that just locks us all into our silos. And it makes it hard. I mean, this is to me, this is the only way we're going to get back to some kind of civil society is like one-on-one, in person, same space, real talk.
What is true?
Because,
what is a fact?
Yeah,
what is a fact?
Exactly. And I can see you saying it. I know you're not a deep fake because I'm standing next to you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But it's harder and harder for people to get into those places. You know, in the old days, you had the bull roasts and, you know, the clam bakes and all these things where people would get together as a community and share with each other. And they might not agree on politics all the time, but they had relationships. That was the connective tissue. Now, more and more
they're
people...
neighbors. They're citizens.
Yeah. But more and more now, people are kind of staying inside their own ecosystems, and they make assumptions about the other person. You know, you think X, Y, and Z, I don't want to talk to you. That makes it very hard for us to come together as a country. So that remains a huge, huge challenge, and we see it play out every day in these elections and otherwise.
Congressman John Sarbanes from the 3rd District. I got good news for John because this is his favorite crab cake in the world, and Damie has brought it on. We're going to be having crab cakes. It's the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. It's all brought to you by our friends at the Maryland Lottery. I got the fresh Raven scratch-offs. You get the first one, although
Nice.
You're not allowed to have it. Ben Cardin explained that to me. That's so you
can play with it.
You can look at it, but you can't have it. We're going to come back here and continue to talk more about democracy and more about your outgoingness. You're not running for anything. We're doing the
and
exit
I'm not having
interview.
to raise any money either.
We'll talk about that. Exit interview. John Sarbanes, our good congressman from the south part of Baltimore, Anne Arundel County, Howard County, and I call it the Route 100 route from the airport across. We're back here at Fadley's. Back for more right after this. We're Baltimore Positive.